Hi everyone! This video is all about how to effectively use online task managers. So I'm going to use the task manager Wunderlist as an example during this video, but don't get too hung up on the specifics. The principles and tips and tricks that I talk about in this video should apply to basically any task manager. This video is going to have two parts. The first part is just going to be a really brief introduction of how to use task managers, and the second part is me going over my top 5 mistakes that people make when they use task managers. So let's move over to Wunderlist. So this is the interface of Wunderlist. It's what you see when you have it open on your computer or your phone, and it is basically a series of tasks, all of which are things that I need to do today, because that is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at my today view. But there's a lot of other things you could see over on this left-hand side, which I'll get to in a moment. So let's say you had a new task that you need to bring cookies to the book club. So you would go to that list, you click on book club, and you would write bring cookies to the meeting. And that would be on Thursday, so you would then go over to this calendar, hit Thursday, hit done, and then hit enter. And now you have a task that tells you what you need to do on what day. And when I look at my today view, it doesn't show up because it's not something I have to do today. Today is Monday, but when Thursday comes around, it is going to show up on that list. So every task that you enter kind of has 4 main things that you need to think about when you enter a task. The first is the description. So bringing cookies to the meeting is pretty clear. I don't need to go into any details, but sometimes if it's a more complicated action item, you might want to add a little bit more notes over here, like don't forget that Christina is allergic to peanuts, which is true. The second thing that action items need to have, besides descriptions, is dates. We've got that done. The third thing that action items need to have is a home. So that's like where in your Wunderlist it lives. Right now, this task lives in book club. The lists on this side here are honestly optional. If you wanted to, you could literally put every task in your inbox, which is kind of an put everything in there type list. I just like having these lists on the side because I think it helps me keep a little bit more organized. It's not a requirement, but if you wanted to add a new list, you would just hit plus down here and write new list and create the list. And there it is. The fourth thing is that it needs to have an owner, and that means who was responsible for doing it. In Wunderlist and a lot of other task managers, there's personal lists where all of the tasks are for you, and there's shared lists where you are working with a team. So for example, development over here, this is a group that I'm a part of. I have a personal list for my personal tasks for development and a group shared list for development. You can see it's shared because it has these little people here, which means that if I type an action item like bring cookies to the meeting, I have an option of assigning it to a specific person. So I could assign it to myself and hit that due date and hit done and hit enter, and then it would be for me. Now, if I assigned it to someone else, like Tanya, for example, she would get that notification as well that she now has that task. In the same way that if I got assigned an action item by someone else and they made it due today, it would show up on my today list. Then all you would need to do in theory is every day open up your task manager, see what you have to do, and get to work. But now I'm going to talk about the 5 main issues that people come across when they are using task managers. The first issue that I see a lot is really easy to fix, and that's just not putting tasks in right away. Our brain forgets things really fast, so don't assume that you're going to remember as soon as someone asks you to do something, put it in your Wunderlist right away. And this problem happens a lot when you get a task through WhatsApp or something like that, where you read the message and then the message is gone and you've totally forgotten that that message even existed. So as soon as someone sends you a message and asks you to do something, write that task in right away, like invite friends to the workshop, and you're gonna, do that tomorrow. And if you can't write it in for whatever reason, then mark that message on your WhatsApp as unread so that you know to go back to it. Another issue that I see a lot is not using Wunderlist as your home base. People might also have lists scribbled on a sticky note or on a notebook or in another app, and then it's really hard to know how many lists you need to check, and you're always checking different things, so put everything together. A common issue then is what you do with project plans. So you might have this project plan that you've made for a complex project like organizing a protest or something like that, and I don't think you need to go and copy all of those tasks into your Wunderlist. What I would just do is put the link to the project plan right here in the notes, and then make a reminder for yourself to check that project plan, and then everything is coordinated and in one place, and you don't have to independently remember that you have this separate project plan that you need to look at. The third issue that I see a lot is not making use of the recurring task feature. So this is one of my favorite things with Wunderlist and basically any half-decent task manager, is that you have this option to say how often you want that task to repeat. It can never repeat. It can repeat every day, every week, every month, every year, or custom like every 3 days or something like that. So what happens is if this is due today and I check it off, then 3 days later, because that's what it's set to, it will show up on my today list again. So I have so many things that are recurring. Everything that has a little arrow here, like you can see, is set to recur. So basically any sort of complex project that I have where it's linking to a project plan, I set that to repeat every day, because every day I want to look at that project plan. Things like posting on Instagram. We have a SF Bay Area Instagram, and it is my responsibility to post on there every week on Wednesdays. So it's going to be set to do tomorrow, which is a Wednesday, and it's set to repeat every week. People say that I am really good at operations, but really I'm just really good at using the recurring task feature. The fourth issue that I see a lot is people incorrectly using due dates as due dates, D-U-E, instead of due dates, D-O. I believe very strongly that the dates here should be due, D-O dates. When exactly are you going to do these tasks? Because it does not help you if you have a task that says, you need to have this presentation done, and you just set it due for when it actually has to be done. That day, you're going to look at your task list for the day, and it's going to say, do your presentation, and you're going to be like, I don't have time to do this presentation because it's going to take me a ton of time, and it's set to show up on the day that it's due. So instead, you should actually list the dates down of when you are actually going to do that task, not when it needs to be completed. For some things, that's really easy. So making an agenda is a task that doesn't take very long, 15 minutes or something like that. It can be due and done on the exact same day. But other things like making this Wunderlist video, which I'm doing right now, if it was actually due today, then I would be in a bit of a problem, or have a problem, because I would be working on it on the same day it's due, and this is not something that's going to happen very quickly. So I think this is actually the number one problem I see with basically any sort of project management, is people not taking into account the fact that it often takes longer than they think to do a task, and then they just put it to the last possible minute, and that's when everything is a scramble. And the last issue that I see often is letting these due dates over here run wild. If everything here was overdue, the due dates on these tasks become meaningless, and they basically don't matter anymore because there's no sort of structure, there's no accountability for yourself, and they're all off, so why does it even matter? So do not let your dates run wild. If they are all getting overdue, you need to take a moment and reevaluate and reset those due dates. But otherwise, if there's just one or two things that are not super critical overdue, then that's a nice little reminder. They're going to show up in red over here that they need to get done, and that will remind you. But if you are having, I have 45 tasks to do this week. If 36 of them are overdue, the due dates now are completely meaningless, and I don't even have any sort of way to know what I have to do when, because I want them to all show up when I'm going to do them on the day, and instead they're all going to be there, all overdue in red, just making no sense. So be on top of your due dates. Organization is the kind of thing that once you get on top of it is really easy, or relatively easy to maintain, but once you get behind, it's a hot mess and it's hard to keep up. So keep your dates accurate, do your work every day, and those are my top 5 tips / top 5 mistakes that I tend to see when people use Wunderlist or other task managers like this.